this is the Wisdom Entrepreneurs webinar. It's a series of free webinars, and I thought this evening I would tell you sort of about the Beyond Recovery story, really. Talk to you about why we're doing this program, and how it sort of, I think it will work. You can ask questions. To ask questions, you can raise your hand. There's a little hand raise thing. You can raise your hand. I think if you go into participants and you select your name, but equally, you might have to unmute yourself as well. But I think Liz might be looking after the muting and the unmuting part of it. And anything else? So it is being recorded in SpeakerView, as Liz just said. So if you speak, it means that your face will show and your voice, obviously. And if you want that taken out and not used for any purposes, then let us know, and we'll make sure that we do that. And we've booked until 5:15. Just to give us some time for questions and so on at the end of the webinar. And this webinar, this series of webinars, are designed to build on each other so that we can support each other through the process of getting things started, getting out of our own way, wondering what to do next, feeling a bit lonely because it feels like it's only you know, out there doing something or not doing something, as the case may be. And my sort of wish and desire is that we start to connect with each other. And so it may be that you connect with each other outside of this webinar and start helping each other. I'd highly encourage that. So, you know, if you hear somebody that you like speaking and you want to drop them an email, do that. Because it's always nicer to have a buddy on this journey. And if you need any help with any of that, then just email us. What we'll do afterwards, there's a Beyond Recovery Facebook page. We'll do a special group page for this webinar series, and I'll write that down to remind myself. And then we can sort of post any questions there, or, you know, I heard so-and-so speak, and you know, that's the sort of thing I'd like to do. So can I connect with them? Anything, comments, no verbal abuse, anything you want. And let's see how we go. So tonight's the first one. There's one at the end of July, and then there's one at the end of September. And I think that Holly sent out the dates already. And one more practical thing is, I think that you have to sign up for each of the events to ensure that you get the Zoom sent to you. I believe that's how it works. But bear with us, because we're sort of feeling our way on this. So there may be hiccups along the way. So don't shout at us, just tell us what it is that we got wrong, and we'll try to put it right. Okay. Is that okay with anybody? This is a moment for you to ask anything you want to ask. Yeah, good, thank you. Lots of smiles and thumbs up. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to start with something that I just picked from the Enlightened Gardener. Andy contemplated for a little while and then replied, "This physical life, all matter and all that we can survey, is what I am calling after form. That includes all personally formed thoughts, or, if you wish, your intellect." I asked Andy what he meant by the term contamination of personal thought. Once more, Andy sat quietly for a few moments as he carefully considered his answer. And then he said, "Before personal thoughts, lie the virgin spiritual thoughts, sometimes known as wisdom. Or similarly, before personal bias can affect thinking, there is original thought. Beyond Recovery is a wisdom-inspired organisation. And the story will tell you why I say that, because in the past, I've struggled more with, like, if I've had an idea, well, what will I do? How will I get that started? What does it mean if? I don't know how to do this. What about if I haven't got enough of that? Oh, I don't feel so confident. Or nervous feelings, like before I started tonight, I felt nervous. Nervous feelings would get in my way. What about if I feel nervous and I can't do it? And sometimes those things prevented me from doing things, and sometimes they didn't. Sometimes it would be more of a case of feel the fear and do it anyway. So it was that white knuckle ride of getting things started. And what I noticed was that actually, when you get a wisdom-inspired thought, you don't have to contaminate it with personal thinking. You just respond to it. So I'm hoping that this story of Beyond Recovery will help people to see that and what I mean by that, and give you like real practical ideas or thoughts that can actually have you do what you want to do and do what you need to do. And that's why this whole webinar series was designed. So I've been really touched and really feel a lot of gratitude for the many people that are interested in Beyond Recovery, either because they feel inspired, or because they want to volunteer, or because they don't know what to do in their own lives. So they're seeing this going on and they think, well, how did that happen? And I'm really touched by the many people who are enthusiastic about the work that we do and affected by the work that we do. So I wanted to find a way of serving all of those people without me using up a lot of my time. If 52 people do join this webinar, for instance, that's a lot of hours of Skypes and things. But also in a way that, like I said, that we can actually start to help each other and support each other, and start to realise, like, oh yeah, other people have that problem too. It's not just me. And more recently, because I've become really passionate about having people see that I'm not actually inspiring, it's what's been stirred inside of you. So if you're inspired, it's because you're inspiring. And I want people to see that and to look back at that and then see where that comes from, and therefore be able to go and do whatever they want to do. And I think finally, or for now, finally, it's to do with that most of the people on this call will have some knowledge of the three principles in one way or another. I don't know how much or how little, and if anybody has none, please message so that we can cover that. But what tends to happen is that we get impacted by hearing about the principles, and then we immediately think, how can we go out there in the world and do something with this? How can we tell everyone about it? How can we share it? How can we start businesses? And I really feel passionate about sharing that it's all in the being. It's all in being yourself, and the rest follows, regardless to what that is. And and as we go along, that will make more sense. But to me, you don't have to go out and teach the principles. You have to go out and be you. And if you're living from a good space, if you're feeling good about something, if you're passionate about something, the rest all follows. So I'll tell you the story of Beyond Recovery. We'll talk about where are we now, and then hopefully, if you've reflected on the question that we sent out beforehand, we'll have some conversation around that, and then I might give you some homework to do before next time. So that's something to look forward to, isn't it? So, and I might talk about some of the stories that we have the honour of being privy to with the guys that we work with in prison and the people that we work with in the community. So maybe more of that next time as well, you know, if there's not too much time today. So Beyond Recovery really happened accidentally. My background is IT and customer services, nothing to do with mental health at all. I came to a point in my life in 2010 where a number of personal things happened and a number of business things happened at the same time. So I was made redundant with a really small payoff. So it's not like I got a massive payoff or anything. And I had a lot of big personal situations going on. So it was one of those points in your life where you go, what's it all about? And then you sort of consider where you're at. Do you want to answer that, Liz? Sorry. And so what happened for me was, so I'm just sort of thinking about which bits of the story to tell. So my father died, and I got sort of catapulted into a sudden opening my eyes that there was more outside of the world that I existed in. And the world I existed in at that time was running an IT business, lots and lots of problems in business. People always coming to me with problems, having to pretend I had all the answers, having to keep struggling with all of that, feeling like a fraud most of the time. Feeling insecure a lot of the time, feeling very happy and very confident some of the time too, but just one of those like get through life, like, you know, just really just keep going and get through and do the best you can. And when my father died, who had a sort of a very volatile relationship with for many years, I was thrust into this situation where I had to manage his affairs, and he'd gone very spooky in the later years of his life. When he knew he was dying, he'd started to get into all these alternative things like spooky stuff, and like crystals and Reiki and shamanism and all sorts of things like that. And I was like really intrigued by all of that and really interested. And he'd also started a hypnotherapy business, and I started getting really intrigued by all these spooky things and what his view of life was. And I looked into many of them, and along the way, he also was getting a newsletter from Michael Neal, who runs a coaching academy for people who want to do coaching as a career. And so I started getting Michael Neal's newsletter, And after he died, I was still getting his newsletter, and I was quite drawn by this newsletter. And I didn't know what it was about it, but there felt like there was an energy to it that I enjoyed. And when I was made redundant, I suddenly thought, do you know what? I'm going to do something different now. And long story short, I ended up doing a Supercoach with Mike O'Neill. And at the time, he used to be an NLP guy, which is neuro-linguistic programming. He used to teach and create NLP practitioners. And at the time, he was transitioning or interested in this thing called the 3 principles. So I went along and did Supercoach, and I learned about the principles. And I didn't like the principles. I didn't think that they had anything to do with anything. I didn't want to have anything to do with them. I actually thought they were a cult. So I was like, you can keep that, but I was interested in all these other things. And I started doing executive coaching and stuff with people. And at the same time, along the journey, I met somebody who I was going to business networking events and so on. Am I okay? Is this okay for everybody? Yeah. I was going to business networking events and so on. And I met someone who was in recovery from a lifetime of addictions. And the thing was, I was just inspired by him. You know, I just thought he was amazing. He was 3 years in recovery. He was like a real go-getter. He was doing stuff with his life. He was helping other people. And I was just like, I just had my socks blown off by him. I just thought, I've never met anyone like this. And so I started hanging out with him, and I started volunteering on his, he had a social enterprise. So I started volunteering for his social enterprise and helping him out on various things. And through him, I met many other people in various stages of recovery, in active addiction, people who've been in prison, all sorts of walks of life. And I'd never met such amazing people in the whole of my life. I was just so infused by them. They were like determined, passionate, creative. They had stories. They were just people that I was really drawn to. And bearing in mind, I still didn't think anything of the 3 principles, but I started talking to people. This guy used to do home detoxes, which means that people who were suffering with addictions would go to his home, and with the help of a community nurse, he would help them through their detox situation. So I met people in all sorts of different situations, and I just started talking to people about, really, it was about the inside out nature of life. It was about how we create our own reality. That was it, really. And how I saw that it didn't seem to be me that was in control of life. Like there was something else that wasn't me in control of life, and that life had got more easy for me the more I started to look in that direction. And at first, that's all I shared, and pretty much for about the next 18 months, that's about all I shared, because that's all I knew. I didn't know anything else. I didn't know how to share anything else, so I just shared what I knew. And it just occurred that people found this interesting. Those people that I met in the recovery community taught me about the 3 principles, because I saw it in action. I saw that people created their own realities. I saw that they created their own beliefs. They created their own stigma. That they didn't see their own amazingness. and I wanted to do something about that. So I really started to get passionate about, well, how do we help people see that they're amazing and not create their own stigma? And how do we stop the world from having stigma? And that was just the route then that took me on this journey. So as part of that, I did a lot of research around addictions and so on. And just intuitively, I felt that the current paradigm that we live in with how addiction is treated was not really representing the whole of the population. So it's not to say that people don't get help, and there are really good, meaningful and relevant things out there. But just for me, I just felt that there could be more. You know, that seeing people as diseased wasn't helpful, for instance, in my opinion, and that I perhaps could do something about that. So I just kept following that, just kept talking to people. And there was a pivotal point when I was going to a lot of business networking events. If you don't know what they are, they're like, you can have like breakfast meetings and lunch meetings and sometimes dinner meetings where business people of all walks of life will meet and talk about their businesses and hopefully get business. Really, that's the aim of them. Although they say that it's to serve others. I didn't really find that. But anyway, I was attending a lot of those. And I was attending a lunch one day, which was businessmen and women in Birmingham from like solicitors and places like that. And I'd been to this lunch many times. And the night before, I said to my husband, who I don't think was my husband at that point, I said to him, I don't know what I'm going to say tomorrow. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. And he said, what do you mean? So I don't know what I can't talk about, you know, what am I going to talk about? How am I going to tell them? What am I doing? Who am I? And he said, well, you're going to talk about addiction. That's what you do, isn't it? that's your bag. So I was like, really? And he said, yeah, do it. That's what you're passionate about. Go and do it. And so I said, yeah, right, that makes sense. So off I went. And I have to say, I don't know, I've maybe attended, it feels like hundreds of business networking events. That was the best ever, because I had the best conversations. People were interested in what I had to say. People were arguing with me about, you know, that I didn't have it right, that actually addiction was a disease. People were coming telling me their secrets. Someone come and tell me that they were a gambler. Somebody else came and told me that their brother was an alcoholic. Just everyone wanted to talk to me, and everyone wanted to share their stories. And I had an amazing time. And I'm telling you that because it really, really showed me that I just followed what I was passionate about, you know, and I was nervous about doing it. But when my husband shone a light on that and said, well, that's what you're passionate about, why would you talk about anything else? It made total sense, right? And then everything else flows from there. And after that, I just became more and more confident about talking about what I was passionate about and what I was seeing and where I thought I could help in the world. So you maybe don't know, or you maybe do know, but I won't tell you the story now. But there was a story about a sort of epiphany that I had in the park, and in September 2013, which started this journey of Beyond Recovery, or started the next stage of this journey of Beyond Recovery. And there's a video out there called Volcano, and if you want to hear about that story, you can look that video up. But what happened at that event helped me to see that this is what I do. This is what I want to do. I don't know what it means. I don't know why. I don't know how I'm going to make money. The people that I'm working with, often people who can't afford coaching services and things like that. But I don't care. I know that I want to work with this population. I feel at home here. I feel like this is where I'm meant to be. And I spoke to somebody at that event who said, you need to come and tell my recovery community. So for the next 18 months, I worked with Coventry Recovery Community, and anyone who came to me, I told them, well, in fact, actually, I'm skipping a step here, because what happened was, I thought, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm going to say to anybody who comes along, and who am I? And, you know, how will I navigate 12 steps and smart recovery and all of these other things? And this guy rang me and said, I've got somebody that I think you should see. I think that it'll really help him, what you've got to say. Can I send him along? And I said yes. And so he sent him along, and he was 5 years in recovery, this guy was. And before he came, I thought, yes, that's what I'm going to do. I'll only work with people who are 5 years in recovery, who have got this and this and this, which I came to see was an absolute load of old rubbish. So it doesn't matter what you make up along the way, because you can just throw it in the bin afterwards. So anyway, he came along, and all of a sudden, out of my mouth just came talking about the inside out nature of life, talking about what's beyond what we're thinking, talking about how life unfolds without us having to do things about it, and so on. And after that, when I worked with my business clients, I could no longer apply the old coaching techniques that I had. It just didn't make sense to me anymore. Suddenly, like, this crack had opened up inside me, which was, I didn't know what it was or how to express it, but I knew that I had to follow that. So I just kept doing that. I worked with people voluntary for another 18 months or so. Anyone who came, I worked with them. Anywhere I was told to go, I went. And eventually in 2014, I decided that I would see if I could make a business out of this. I was lucky. I took paying the bills off the table by applying for a project, which I won, and I was running a project sort of a day and a half a week. And the rest of the time I was playing with setting up a business. And those lovely people that I originally had worked with, when I'd gone in to see them, had said, this is beyond recovery. So they named the company, because I had to keep calling it that, didn't I? So I was then thinking, right, what would I do? How would I make a business? And I did what I knew, which will be different from what you know. So what I knew then was to go business networking, to make up an idea of what a group would look like, or a workshop would look like, and to talk to people about it. So that's what I did. And most people, I have to say, like, just thought I was nuts. They absolutely didn't like it at all. So I went to addiction services, I went to community groups, I applied for funding, nobody was interested, and I grew though. I started to get more, see what I'd done wrong. So not wrong, but, you know, see where I could have spoken about it better, or hone my story a bit better. And I could see where people were interested and where they weren't. And I guess if I had a toolkit, I would say that the most useful thing to me has been learning to listen. So really going in and listening to whoever's in front of me, and not going in with the idea of I've got something for you, but being really curious about them and being really excited about having someone to talk to and to tell your thing to, and seeing where that goes. And I each time had less and less attachment, if you like. So I'd go to meetings, and I'd embrace the meeting, and I'd be curious, and I'd talk about whatever it was at that time that I had to talk about, whether it was an example of something that has worked, or whether it was listening to them and then saying, oh, this is how, you know, I see that. And I just got better at listening, and then better at responding to what they had. And I got to see, if you like, this might be tip number 2, I got to see that I could never go in with a set idea about something. No matter how much research you've done about an organisation or a situation, you never actually know. And again, you know, to bring my husband into this is what he naturally does when he's speaking to clients. I used to say to him, well, what are you going to say to this person, whoever he was going to see? And he used to say, I don't know till I'm there. Or I'd say, well, how are you going to deal with that thing? And he said, well, I haven't heard what they want yet. And so I really got to see, through listening to him and to really experimenting with that myself, that we really never know. So it doesn't matter how many sales courses you sign up to, or how to get this and how to get that. Actually, every single person that's in front of you is a fresh person, whether it's a client, whether it's a potential sales, whether it's a potential relationship, as a, you know, love relationship. Every person who sits in front of you is a fresh person, and it's a fresh moment. So actually being able to go in and be fresh yourself is the only thing you need. So I really got to experience that through my sort of like knocking doors and going and having all of these meetings. And along the way, I was the guy that I originally met that had inspired me to even look in this direction, made an introduction to the service manager in HMP Onley. And I looked it up the other day. I found the email, and it was a 1-line introduction. And from that 1-line introduction, I just followed that again. And I went and met with the service manager, whose name's Scott Davidson. I went and met with Scott, and over the next 4 months, we developed a research project, wrote a business case, applied for some funding, and then won the funding. So I met him in August, and we won the funding to start work there in January, at the end of January 2015. And to bring you up to speed, because I'm aware I've actually talked for quite a long time, to bring you up to speed with where that is now, is that we've been doing that now for 2 years. We're working with another prison, which we're in our 2nd year with. We've won some other contracts along the way, and some bits of funding and things like that. And I'll talk more about where Beyond Recovery is next time. But I want to spend the last half an hour with you guys and sort of seeing what you've heard and so on. So I'll round that off by, to me, that sounds like a really individual story, right? And that's what we've all got. We've all got our own individual stories. We've all got our own flavour of that sort of Jacqueline-ness, whatever that is. We can just all follow that. I am no different and no special than anyone else in this room or in this world, in actual fact. just being just all that's happened for me, which is different, is I have followed the next step, and if I've fallen over, I've just followed another step here instead of going, oh, I've fallen over, I better stop. Or I've got stuck many times, but I haven't let that stuckness stop me. And the normalness of Beyond Recovery is amazing. It's amazing. And I am deeply, deeply grateful for what's happened. I can't express that enough. And I'm often in awe and shocked by it too. It has done a lot in 2 years. But in actual fact, there's a lot of normality in it. There's a lot of things that went wrong, a lot of pulling my hair out, a lot of scratching my head, many tears, many laughs, a lot of humility, a lot of ego, you know, everything is in there, and it's what you've all got too. My particular interest is people who have a desire to change something socially, and partly because to me it's about the people. If we can be in this world and come from a place of love and understanding and compassion in whatever we're doing, we can impact other people. And it doesn't have to be a big social enterprise with, you know, talking around the world and getting funding and getting awards and things like that. It can just be walking through the park and seeing someone that you go and sit with on the bench. It can just be cooking a nice meal for our partner. It can just be playing with your pets. Who we're being in the world is the doing follows. The doing is so unimportant. The doing 100% guarantee follows the being. And me too, look for the doing. What next? Why? How do I? What about if I don't know? But the answers aren't there. And so I'm going to always encourage you and point you back to the being. And the being is where the wisdom is.